In this episode of Lessons Learned, I'm going to tell my son a story about the mango tree.
Mango tree. 1, 2, 3.
Aloha!
We are Kensho Quest.
We travel to open our minds and our hearts.
Let's make friends around the world.
A long time ago, Kaisha, before you were born, your mom and I, we went on a trip to India. It started out as a typical travel day in India, which is usually very long. We had just taken a long overnight sleeper train. We were trying to get to the little town called Hampi. Now, the town of Hampi is known for being what's called a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Do you know what that means?
No.
So UNESCO World Heritage Site is something that is protected by the world. It's recognized by the international community as being someplace that has either historical, cultural, or some other type of importance. What's also interesting is that this little town called Hampi doesn't get the respect of the bigger towns, which means that if there is a shortage of power, they shut off the electricity. And so this was very common in this town of Hampi. It seemed every evening, if there was no set time, the power would just go out for a few hours at a time. And when that happened, the entire lights of the town went out. There was no air conditioning, no fans, nothing. You couldn't cook with electric, you had to cook with fire only.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of crazy, huh?
That's really natural.
Yes, exactly. Back to the old ways, right? And when we arrived there, it was already late afternoon. And usually the first thing when we get to a new town, what do?
I don't know.
No, we find a place to stay. Because what we realized is that when we first got to India is we were booking ahead of time, but we realized if we just show up to the town that day, we could find some place with a much better rate. And so we found a place, and it was a little tiny cottage. We got the room for 200 rupees per night after a little bit of haggling and a lot of smiling. Do you know how much that is in dollars? That is about $3 a night.
That shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, not too bad, paying $3 a night for a little cottage, huh? So after we checked in, it's like 5, 6 p.m. now, and we're hungry, so we go looking for a restaurant. And your mom had done some research. So back in the day, over 10 years ago, not many people had smartphones, okay? It was very rare. We didn't have one. Instead, everybody used to carry around this big thick book called The Lonely Planet. And in The Lonely Planet, there was a restaurant it recommended called The Mango Tree. The problem is because it's a book, there usually are no maps in the book, and it's just written text saying, turn left here, turn right, go down this road. And so we got lost. And this is usually the case. I've always found it to be very difficult to follow the directions that people write in The Lonely Planet. And we got lost as usual. It said to head towards the main temple, which is this beautiful temple right in the middle of the town, and then to go around it. So we did that. We went around it, and there were bunch of these bushes with thorns on them. I think they were kind of like blackberry bushes. And I cut up my leg going through there, and it made me so mad. I'm just like, forget that. We're not going there tonight. After we had dinner, we went back to our room, and it was super hot. And you open the door, it's this little tiny cottage, about the size of this bedroom right here. So luckily there was a ceiling fan, no AC, which is, pretty common as well, no AC. So we turned the fan on, opened the windows up, and, try to circulate some air in there, but it's still super hot. And then the power goes out. So,
of course it does.
Of course it does, yes, exactly. We had a rough night, but eventually we were able to fall asleep. But as soon as we fell asleep, all of a sudden there was a lot of noise outside. All of a sudden, even though this was down this quiet, dusty little road, a lot of people were walking back and forth. And what we realized is that it had gotten so hot that, people were outside and stuff because it was cooler outside than it was inside. And then some people sat right on the porch of our cottage and started talking right there. Is that weird to you?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so we couldn't see them because we had curtains, but we were so tired that we eventually fell asleep. The very next day, we finally got to see it. It's this really cool ancient town. There's like all these ruins, Like in your video games and stuff, there's just all these temples and These ancient buildings that they built all out of stone, and a lot of them are still standing. Anyways, it's a pretty cool town. And it's also known for having this river, really cool river with a bunch of these rocks and stuff. And so there was a lot of people playing in the river, you know, bathing in the river, playing in the river. Later on that day, we decided to go try to find the mango tree again. I realized that I had kind of misread the directions in the Lonely Planet. So we thought, let's go try again. So we start walking, we get, you know, we're going out, and we're walking and walking and walking, you know, we're going down all these trails, and we're like, this is kind of ridiculous. It's like really far, you know. We walked 10 minutes and we're thinking, according to the instructions, we should be there already. But it's like really hot, you know, it's sunny. Again, it's about 40 degrees Celsius this time. It's hotter than the previous day. So that's like 105 degrees. It's really hot. And finally, after about 20 minutes of us looking for this place called the mango tree, we give up again. And I'm mad. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. It's like, why can't they make better instructions, you know? And if you're a restaurant, why don't you put signs out here? If you're gonna be out in the jungle or out, you know, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, put some signs out there so people can find where it's located.
Yeah, like, even if it would be helpful if you just put some signs like this way or...
Exactly. I agree, but there was nothing. So it was really frustrating, but mainly we were just getting so hot and tired that we gave up again for the second day in a row. We're like, nope, no mango tree. Anyways, later on in that evening, after another full day of exploring the ruins and stuff of Hampi, we come back to our room, to our cottage, and there's a bunch of people outside, like everywhere. We're like, what's going on out here? You know, it must be some kind of party or something. There's a party going on, and I'm thinking, great, we're not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm just thinking about myself. I don't care about them. Like, I want to get some rest. I paid 200 rupees a night for this room. And your mom was like, take it easy. We don't know if they're going to be loud or like that. So I'm like thinking, she's right. By 8 p.m., we are in our room, and we got the fan going. Luckily, the power hasn't gone out yet. We got the fan going. What we figured out is if we took our towels and we soaked them in the shower and we hung them, luckily there were these lines to hang your clothes like right next to the bed, and the fan was in the center, is if we hung our towels on it, when the fan whirred and it spun, it made like an air cooler effect in there, and it blew the coolness of those wet towels around, and it cooled us off quite well. Pretty cool idea, huh? Pretty ingenious, huh? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, that didn't last forever. Eventually, around 10 o'clock at night, the power went out. So what happens when the power goes out?
No more fan, no more light, no more anything.
Right, and which means it gets really hot again. And we need to have the window open because it's, you know, it was still hot regardless. But because there was a party going on outside, all of a sudden we can hear everything. It's just so loud, you know? And it's about 10 o'clock at night. And now I can see that there's a bunch of people sitting on our porch because they're like right next to the window, and I can see their silhouette through the window, and I'm thinking, what's wrong with these people? You know, this is our room. We paid for this room. Why are you sitting right outside our door? Don't you think that's weird? Is it just me?
I don't know.
Well, I thought it was weird. 11 o'clock, they're still out there. 12 o'clock, they're still out there. And my blood is starting to boil. I'm getting mad, right? And your mom's like, take it easy. Let's just try to sleep it off. So I try to sleep it off, you know, but how are you supposed to sleep when it sounds like they're literally across the room from you? Finally, I'm not gonna yell at them. You know, I don't know what's really going on out there. So instead, I go up there and I slam the window shut. As soon as I slam that window shut, instant silence. They got it, and everybody was calm. And we went to sleep. The very next day, as soon as we get up, I tell your mom, I'm gonna go next door and give them a piece of my mind. Because I'm thinking, they were having a party next door. How could they do that? They rented us a room, and how could they be so inconsiderate? So your mom's all like, go easy on them, we don't know the whole story. So I march out there, and the owner sees me, and he starts marching towards me, and before I can say anything, he starts blurting out some words. The next door neighbor, their daughter has died. She had cancer. All these people came to pay her their respects. That's why they were here last night. They'll be gone today. So it
For
wasn't
like
a party.
funeral?
Yes. They were there to pay their respects. And I was on my way there to yell at him, to tell him of how inconsiderate they were.
But they're just trying to reconsider it.
Exactly. They weren't trying to be disrespectful to me. They were just there to show their respects to the family. I felt pretty terrible after that. I was in shock. And, I never told the owner how I felt. I just was like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. So we went about our day. We thought to cheer us up, let's go find the mango tree. Maybe today we will find the Mango Tree restaurant. Do you think we found it?
Yes.
You're right. We found it. This has been not a very pleasant day. Had a horrible morning. We are going to make this day better and find that Mango Tree restaurant. So we're just marching down that path, going the same way we went yesterday, except we just keep on going. We're like, it's gotta be down here. And this is way out in the country, Kaisha. There's just like fields, there's banana trees growing on the sides, there's a river on this side, and there's just other crops. And then we have to cross these fences and stuff. So most people, I'm thinking, aren't gonna find this place. And Lonely Planet didn't tell us about most of these things. So anyways, we keep going, and finally we see a sign, and it says, Mango Tree, straight ahead. We're thinking, yes, finally. Finally, we're gonna get to eat at the Mango Tree restaurant. And then, we see the gate. It says Mango Tree Restaurant. It's just this old farm, wired gate. And we're about to open the gate. And we see this guy approaching us, and he walks up to him and he says, sorry, Mango Tree closed today. Closed? Can you believe that? Closed. Your mom and I, we look at each other and we're like, what the? Like, no, this can't be happening, right? We had tried to find this restaurant 3 days in a row. And as his last day, we turned around, we were just like in utter disbelief, thinking, this cannot be happening to us. We're walking back, and all of a sudden, I just have this sense of rage come over me. I'm just really mad, right? And I turn around and I say, you should at least put a sign out there that says you're closed. You know how far we walked? And the guy just waved and did this is an Indian nod, which, no disrespect, but I still don't know what that means because there's so many different meanings to it. Later on that night, around 8 p.m., the power goes out again. And so your mom and I, we decide we're just gonna sit out in the front steps because it's a beautiful night. There's like a million stars outside because we're way out in the country, so there's not all these big city lights polluting the sky, so we can see so many stars. So it's quite beautiful, and we're just sitting there recapping our last 3 days and how we weren't able to eat at the Mango Tree restaurant. And right when we were discussing that, the owner from next door who rented us the room came and sat down with us. He says, oh, by the way, do you know a restaurant called the Mango Tree? And we're like, yes, we've been trying to eat there. He says, oh yeah, they're closed for the next few days because of their daughter. Heidi and I just looked at each other and we just couldn't believe it. It's like everything had come full circle. Here we are, especially me. This is what the lesson I'm trying to teach you here today, Kensho, is all I could do was think about myself. I didn't care about anybody else but myself. I wanted to eat at the Mango Tree restaurant. I wanted it to be quiet at night. I didn't think about anybody else's feelings or what anybody else was thinking. How do you think I handled that situation, Kensho?
Just a little selfish, I think.
A little selfish? Yeah. What I probably should have done, first of all, is that first night, I probably should have just politely went out there and said, hey, can you guys just keep your volume down a little bit? I tend to keep things in. So that's a really bad thing to do. You never want to let things build up. You want to try to release it right away, but in the most polite way possible. And the reason why is because we don't know what the other person is going through. Let me give you another example. You go to a restaurant and you order some food, and the waiter brings your food, but they bring you the wrong food. Does that give you a reason to be upset at them?
Not really.
Why?
Because everybody gets stuff mixed up and maybe they're just out of something.
Well said, Kensho. Well said. I would like to add to that, is that we also don't know the backstory. We don't know what kind of day they're having. Maybe, maybe they just got yelled at by their boss, and we all make mistakes. Something could have happened, right? So we don't know what happened to them. So us jumping to conclusions and getting mad at somebody is never the right way to go. So in the case of the mango tree, there were so many instances where I could have handled it better. Instead of yelling at the owner of the mango tree, I could have just said, or I could have just asked them, well, why are you closed? What we have to try to remember, and what I've learned, and I always come back to the story, we shouldn't be selfish, and we need to be thinking about the greater good of people. And so whenever I run into these type of situations, I'm not perfect, I still make mistakes, I still yell at people, but ever since this incident happened, I've toned that way down, and I always refer to this as the lesson learned from the mango tree. What have you learned today, Kensho?
Don't be selfish.
Don't be selfish. This is why we travel.